The life you want is here now. Open yourself to it. Ladies and gentlemen, the life you desire is not waiting somewhere ahead of you in time. It is not hidden behind years of effort, nor locked behind perfect circumstances. It exists now, complete and whole, in the present moment. The belief that fulfillment lies in the future is one of the greatest illusions of the mind. Time does not create reality, consciousness does. And consciousness is always now. From the moment a desire arises within you, its fulfillment already exists as a state of being. Desire is not proof of absence, it is evidence of presence. You do not long for what is unavailable. You desire what is already formed in the unseen, seeking recognition. The reason the life you want appears distant is not because it is far away, but because your awareness is still anchored to an old identity that has not yet accepted it. Most people live mentally ahead of themselves. They imagine happiness later, peace later, success later. This habit trains the mind to postpone life. When fulfillment is always projected into the future, the present moment is experienced as lacking by default. That sense of lack becomes the dominant state, and reality faithfully reflects it. What you consistently feel now is what you continue to experience. The present moment is not empty. It is pregnant with possibility. It contains every version of reality you could step into. What determines which version you experience is not effort, but attention. Attention is creative. Where you place it determines what becomes real to you. When you place attention on absence, you experience absence. When you place attention on fulfillment, you begin to experience fulfillment. To understand that the life you want exists now, you must shift from thinking of creation as something that happens over time to something that happens through selection. You are not building a future, you are selecting a state. Each moment, you choose the state you occupy through your thoughts, emotions, and assumptions. The state you choose now is the future you experience later. This is why waiting does not work. Waiting assumes that something must happen before you can change how you feel. But feeling is the cause, not the effect. If you wait for life to change before you allow yourself to feel fulfilled, you reinforce the very condition you want to escape. The present moment becomes a place of endurance instead of a place of power. The fulfilled state is not an emotional high. It is a quiet sense of normalcy. It is the feeling of this is done, rather than this is coming. When you occupy this state, you stop searching for confirmation. You stop measuring progress. You stop asking how long it will take. These behaviors belong to someone who believes fulfillment is elsewhere. The fulfilled self lives now. Many people struggle with this idea because they confuse present awareness with denial of reality. They think acknowledging fulfillment now means pretending circumstances do not exist. But recognition is not denial. You are not asked to ignore what you see. You are asked to stop letting it define who you are. Circumstances are the echo of past assumptions. They do not have authority over present choice. The present moment is where all power resides because it is the only place where assumption can change. You cannot change the past, and you cannot act in the future. You can only choose now. When you choose to identify with the fulfilled state now, you interrupt old patterns and initiate new outcomes. The mind resists this because it is conditioned to believe that cause must precede effect in a visible way. But consciousness does not work like that. In consciousness, effect is accepted first and cause follows. This reversal is the key. You do not wait to see success before you feel successful. You feel successful, and success organizes itself around that state. The present moment becomes rich when you stop using it as a waiting room. Many people treat now as something to get through so they can arrive at later. But later never arrives. There is only now repeating itself according to the state you occupy. If you want a different life, you must inhabit a different now. When you accept that the life you want exists now, you stop postponing permission. You stop saying, once this happens, then I'll relax, or once I have that, then I'll be happy. Happiness becomes a state you choose, not a condition you chase. This choice shifts your entire experience. The body responds to this shift immediately. Tension releases. Breathing deepens. The nervous system calms. This physiological change is not incidental. It is a sign that you are no longer in survival mode. Survival mode is future-focused. Presence is creative. Living in the present does not mean abandoning goals. It means embodying their fulfillment now. You still take action, but action flows from identity rather than lack. You act because it feels natural, not because you are trying to fix something. This difference changes outcomes. The present moment is where alignment happens, When your thoughts, emotions, and assumptions agree now, reality responds later. But if they are divided, hoping now, fearing now, doubting now, creation stalls. Unity in the present creates momentum. Many people underestimate the power of simple acceptance. When you accept something as true now, you remove resistance. Resistance is what creates the illusion of distance. The moment resistance dissolves, the desired state feels closer, not because it moved, but because you did. The life you want does not need to be summoned. It needs to be recognized. Recognition is an inner shift, not an outer event. When recognition occurs, life rearranges quietly and precisely. Presence is not passive. It is active awareness. It is the choice to live from fulfillment rather than chase it. Each moment you return to the present and identify with the life you want, you reinforce that state. What you consistently live as now becomes what you experience as later. The present moment is the gateway. Step into it fully, and you step into the life you want. The life you desire is not a distant destination you must struggle toward, nor is it a reward reserved for some future version of yourself. It is closer than you have ever imagined, so close, in fact, that it exists within you right now. Most people spend their lives waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, the right sign, or the right permission to finally live the life they long for. Yet the truth is far more powerful and far more freeing. Nothing is missing, nothing is delayed, and nothing is outside your reach. The only shift required is not in time, effort, or circumstances, but in awareness. From an early age, we are conditioned to believe that fulfillment is something we earn later. We are taught that happiness comes after achievement, peace comes after struggle, and abundance comes after sacrifice. This belief quietly trains the mind to live in postponement. We learn to tolerate dissatisfaction now in exchange for hope later. But what if this entire way of thinking is the very reason so many people feel stuck? What if the life you want is not approaching you in the future, but waiting for you to open yourself to it in the present? Today is not about motivation or wishful thinking. It is about recognition. It is about seeing clearly that your inner world is the true source of everything you experience. Every breakthrough, every blessing, every transformation begins within consciousness before it appears in form. The world you see around you is not creating your life. It is reflecting the state of being you consistently occupy. When this understanding settles deeply within you, effort gives way to alignment, struggle gives way to flow, and waiting gives way to receiving. Many people unknowingly block their own desires, not because they are unworthy, but because they remain closed by fear, doubt, old assumptions, and emotional attachments to past experiences. They ask for change while holding tightly to the identity that produced the old results. Yet life responds instantly when you become internally available for something new. When you loosen your grip on limitation and open yourself to possibility, reality rearranges with precision and speed. This message is an invitation to stop chasing and start allowing, to stop trying to become someone else someday and start embodying the version of you who already lives the life you want. You do not need to force belief or convince the world of anything. You simply need to agree inwardly with what you desire as already true. Agreement creates alignment, and alignment creates experience. As we move forward, allow yourself to listen not just with your ears, but with your inner awareness. Let old definitions fall away. Let pressure dissolve. Let the idea that "it's not time yet" lose its power over you. The life you want is not asking you to struggle harder. It is asking you to open. And when you do, you will discover that what you have been seeking has been seeking you all along. The greatest misunderstanding about manifestation is the belief that something outside of you is standing in the way. People blame timing, other people lack of resources, past mistakes, or even destiny itself. Yet the truth is far simpler and far more confronting. Nothing external has the power to block what is already yours. The only barrier is resistance within your own consciousness. Not resistance as effort, but resistance as inner contradiction. Wanting with one hand while rejecting with the other. Resistance appears subtle. It disguises itself as logic, caution, realism, and self-protection. It whispers, "It's not the right time. I need more proof. What if it doesn't work?" Or, "I don't want to get my hopes up." These thoughts feel harmless, even responsible, yet they quietly keep you anchored to the very reality you claim to want to leave. Consciousness does not respond to words, it responds to states. And resistance is a state that says, "not yet, not safe," or "not possible." The moment you desire something, it already exists as a reality in consciousness. Creation does not begin when you see results, it begins when desire arises. Desire is evidence of availability, not lack. However, resistance delays expression because it keeps you emotionally and mentally loyal to the old state. You cannot move into a new experience while continually checking whether the old one has disappeared. That checking is resistance. That watching is resistance. That measuring is resistance. Many people think they must work on themselves endlessly before life can change. But improvement is not what produces manifestation, releases. You do not need to become better, smarter, more spiritual, or more deserving. You need to stop opposing what you want. When resistance dissolves, manifestation becomes natural, almost inevitable. Life flows where there is no inner argument. Consider how effortlessly things show up when you are relaxed about them. The things you don't obsess over often arrive quickly. Why? Because you are not resisting them. You are not emotionally gripping the outcome. You are not checking every hour to see if it has appeared. You are not internally negotiating with fear. You are simply open. Openness is the absence of resistance. Resistance often comes from attachment to how and when. The mind wants control. It wants predictability. It wants guarantees. Yet consciousness does not require details. It requires permission. When you insist on knowing how something must happen, you limit the channels through which it can arrive. When you demand a timeline, you create tension. That tension is resistance. Life responds not to pressure, but to allowance. Another form of resistance is emotional memory. Past disappointments teach the mind to stay guarded. The heart remembers what didn't work and tries to protect itself by staying skeptical. But skepticism is not wisdom, it is delayed belief. And delayed belief is still disbelief. When you carry old emotional reactions into new desires, you unconsciously recreate the past. The outer world faithfully mirrors the inner posture you maintain. Letting go does not mean giving up on desire. It means giving up opposition. It means you stop arguing with the idea that it is possible. It means you stop scanning your reality for evidence of failure. It means you stop rehearsing explanations for why it hasn't happened yet. Letting go is a state of inner neutrality that quietly says, this is allowed. Resistance also appears as over-effort. Trying too hard is not devotion, it is distrust. If you truly trusted that something was done, you would not strain to make it happen. You would move naturally, guided rather than forced. Over-effort reveals an assumption that life will not respond unless you push. But creation is not persuaded by pressure, it is activated by acceptance. The paradox is this: the moment you stop needing proof, proof appears. The moment you stop chasing, life moves toward you. The moment you release emotional urgency, things accelerate. Urgency says, I don't have it. Calm expectancy says, it's already mine. Consciousness always reflects the dominant assumption. Ask yourself honestly, where am I resisting? Am I afraid of disappointment? Am I attached to control? Am I secretly assuming it will take a long time? Am I emotionally rehearsing failure? These are not questions of guilt, but of awareness. The moment resistance is seen, it begins to dissolve. You do not fight resistance. You outgrow it by understanding. When resistance falls away, there is a noticeable shift. The body relaxes, the mind quiets. The desire no longer feels heavy. You stop thinking about it constantly, not because you stopped wanting it, but because wanting transformed into knowing. Knowing is calm. Knowing is steady. Knowing does not demand reassurance. This is why surrender is powerful. Surrender is not weakness, it is alignment. It is the decision to stop contradicting yourself internally. When you surrender, you are not handing control to something outside of you, you are releasing the inner struggle that blocked flow. Surrender is the end of resistance. Life does not test you to see if you are worthy. It responds to the state you occupy. When you remain resistant, life reflects delay. When you soften, life mirrors ease. When you relax expectation, opportunity appears. When you stop bracing for disappointment, reality reorganizes. Nothing needs to be forced into existence. What is meant for you does not require strain. The universe does not need convincing, it needs consent. And consent is given when resistance ends. The doorway was never locked. The only thing that kept it closed was the belief that it might not open. Release the need to monitor progress. Release the habit of comparing. Release the internal commentary. Let the desire rest within you without pressure. This quiet allowance is not passive, it is powerful. It is the state in which creation moves fastest. When resistance dissolves, manifestation becomes a response, not a struggle. Reality shifts because there is nothing left opposing it. What you allow, you experience. What you stop resisting, you receive. Many people say they want a new life, greater abundance, deeper love, peace of mind, or freedom, but wanting is not the same as being available. Desire alone does not bring change. Availability does. You can ask for something every day and still keep it at a distance if your inner posture says, I'm not ready, I'm not worthy, or this is not safe yet. Life responds not to what you request verbally, but to what you are prepared to receive emotionally and mentally. To become available for what you are asking for, you must first understand that receiving is a state, not an event. Receiving begins internally long before anything shows up externally. It is the quiet decision to stop identifying as the person who lacks and to start identifying as the person who has. As long as you remain emotionally aligned with the version of yourself who is waiting, striving, or hoping, you remain unavailable to the experience of fulfillment. Availability requires space, and space is created when old identities are released. Many people unconsciously cling to their struggles because those struggles have become familiar. The mind knows how to survive in lack. It knows how to explain disappointment, but it does not yet know how to exist in ease, consistency, or success. So when something good approaches, discomfort appears, not because it is wrong, but because it is unfamiliar. That discomfort is often misinterpreted as intuition, when in truth it is simply resistance to expansion. Being available means allowing yourself to imagine life without the problem. It means you stop rehearsing what could go wrong and start dwelling in what has already gone right in imagination. Imagination is not fantasy, it is the blueprint of experience. The moment you consistently think, feel, and react from the state of fulfillment, you signal availability. You tell consciousness, I am ready for this now. Many people unknowingly remain unavailable by postponing permission. They say, once I heal, then I'll receive. Once I'm confident, then it will happen. Or once everything lines up, then I'll believe. But this logic is inverted. Healing comes after acceptance. Confidence grows after embodiment. Alignment follows decision. You do not wait to be ready, you decide to be ready, and readiness unfolds. Emotional availability is essential. If you desire love but remain guarded, if you desire abundance but feel unsafe with responsibility, or if you desire peace but stay addicted to chaos, you are unavailable. Life cannot give you what you are not willing to hold. Receiving requires openness, and openness requires trust, not in circumstances, but in yourself. Mental availability is equally important. This means allowing new assumptions to replace old ones. If your mind is constantly occupied with doubt, analysis, and contingency planning, there is no room for certainty. Certainty is not loud or forceful, it is quiet and settled. When the mind rests in assumption rather than questioning, availability is established. Your reactions reveal your availability. When something small goes right, do you dismiss it? When progress appears, do you downplay it? When opportunity knocks, do you hesitate? These reactions expose whether you truly believe you are meant to receive. The fulfilled self does not shrink from good, it expects it. Expectancy is not arrogance, it is alignment with truth. Becoming available also means aligning behavior with identity. You do not need to act perfectly, but you must act consistently with the person who has already received. This is not pretending, it is practicing agreement. When your choices, tone, posture, and decisions match the reality you desire, you step into congruence. Congruence invites manifestation. Another hidden form of unavailability is waiting for validation. When you need others to confirm your worth or your direction, you place your readiness outside of yourself. But availability is self-generated. It does not require permission. The moment you internally claim what you desire as yours, you become receptive. Letting go of the old story is crucial. The story of struggle, delay, betrayal, or failure may have been true once, but it does not need to be true now. As long as you continue to tell it, internally or externally, you remain loyal to the version of yourself that lived it. Availability requires a new narrative, one that assumes success, ease, and continuity. Being available does not mean controlling outcomes. It means trusting yourself to meet whatever unfolds from a place of wholeness. When you stop fearing loss, you become open to gain. When you stop bracing for disappointment, you allow fulfillment. Safety is not created by control, it is created by self-trust. You become available when you stop waiting for signs and start being the sign. When you embody calm before proof, gratitude before arrival, and confidence before confirmation, you demonstrate readiness. Life mirrors that readiness without delay. Receiving is not something you do, it is something you allow. An allowance begins the moment you decide that you are worthy now, ready now, and open now. Faith is often misunderstood as effort, struggle, or blind hope. People think faith means trying to believe harder, repeating affirmations louder, or convincing themselves that something might happen someday. But true faith is far simpler and far more powerful. Faith is agreement. It is the inner consent you give to an idea as already true. The moment you agree inwardly, reality begins to reorganize outwardly. Nothing is forced. Nothing is begged for. What you agree with, you experience. Most people live in constant disagreement with their desires. They say they want abundance, yet internally agree with scarcity. They say they want peace, yet mentally rehearse conflict. They say they want love, yet emotionally agree with abandonment. Consciousness does not respond to spoken wishes. It responds to inner agreements. Your dominant agreement becomes your lived reality. Agreement is not something you do with words, it is something you do with identity. When you agree that something is already true, you stop waiting for it. Waiting is disagreement. Hoping is disagreement. Wondering when it will happen is disagreement. Faith does not ask for timelines because it assumes completion. It rests in the quiet knowing that what is accepted within must express without. This is why faith feels calm, not intense. Intensity belongs to doubt. When you truly agree with something as real, there is no emotional urgency attached to it. You do not rush it. You do not check for signs constantly. You do not seek reassurance. You move through life with a settled inner posture. That posture is faith. Agreement reshapes perception. When you agree with lack, you notice obstacles everywhere. When you agree with abundance, opportunities become obvious. Nothing externally changes first. Your agreement changes how reality is interpreted, and that shift alters the path events take. Reality does not argue with your assumptions, it reflects them. Many people delay agreement because they believe they must see evidence first. But evidence follows agreement, not the other way around. Waiting for proof before believing is the same as asking the mirror to smile before you do. Consciousness mirrors what you accept as true. Agreement is the cause, manifestation is the effect. Faith does not mean denying circumstances. It means refusing to let circumstances define truth. Circumstances are the echo of previous agreements. If you allow them to dictate your current state, you reinforce the past. Faith says, "This may be what I see, but it is not what I agree with." Agreement shifts the future without fighting the present. The reason agreement is so powerful is because consciousness only creates from certainty. Doubt fractures energy. Certainty unifies it. When your mind, emotions, and identity agree on a single assumption, creation becomes inevitable. That assumption does not need to be repeated endlessly. It needs to be accepted fully. Agreement is revealed through reaction. How you respond to delay shows what you agree with. How you respond to challenges reveals your true belief. If you panic, argue, or emotionally collapse, you are agreeing with limitation. If you remain steady, you are agreeing with fulfillment. Faith is not proven by what you say in calm moments, but by what you embody under pressure. This is why faith grows through practice, not effort. Each time you choose to respond from the fulfilled state instead of the fearful one, you strengthen agreement. Each time you assume success rather than brace for failure, you deepen faith. Faith is not something you get, it is something you live. Agreement also dissolves the need for control. When you truly accept that something is already done, you stop micromanaging how it should unfold. Control is a symptom of mistrust. Faith rests because it knows there is nothing to fix. The moment you release control, alignment accelerates. Many people think faith requires emotional excitement. In truth, faith often feels ordinary. It feels natural. It feels like common sense. When an assumption becomes normal to you, it no longer feels dramatic. That normalcy is the signal that agreement is complete. When something feels normal internally, it becomes inevitable externally. Agreement must be internal before it can be external. You cannot agree publicly while disagreeing privately. The inner dialogue matters more than outer declarations. What you silently accept as true carries creative power. That quiet inner, yes, shapes outcomes more than any spoken affirmation. Faith is sustained by consistency, not perfection. You do not need to agree perfectly every moment. You need to return to agreement more often than you return to doubt. The dominant state wins. Even when doubt arises, faith is simply the decision to not build a home there. Agreement also changes self-concept. When you agree that you are supported, guided, and capable, your behavior shifts naturally. You take different actions, notice different opportunities, and attract different responses. Faith does not force change, it allows it by changing who you believe yourself to be. You do not need to understand how agreement works for it to work. You do not need to visualize perfectly or feel positive all the time. You only need to consent to the idea that what you desire is already yours. That consent activates the creative process automatically. Faith ends the inner debate. When the debate stops, energy moves. Inner arguments stall creation. Agreement releases it. The moment you stop negotiating with doubt, reality responds. Everything you experience is the result of what you have already agreed with. Change the agreement, and the experience must follow. Faith is not mysterious. It is simply agreement with truth before the world confirms it. The moment you agree, movement begins. The moment you accept, doors open. The moment you stop arguing internally, life starts answering externally. You do not create the life you want by chasing it. Chasing assumes distance. It assumes lack. It assumes that what you desire is running away from you and must be pursued. But life does not respond to pursuit, it responds to allowance. What is meant for you moves toward you when you stop pushing and start permitting. The moment you understand this, effort softens and alignment takes over. Allowing is not passive. It is not waiting helplessly or doing nothing. Allowing is an inner state of openness, trust, and expectancy without desperation. It is the decision to stop interfering with the natural movement of life. When you allow, you are no longer trying to force outcomes through willpower. You are positioning yourself to receive what is already arranged. Most people block their desires by trying too hard. They plan obsessively, analyze endlessly, and monitor progress constantly. This creates tension. Tension is resistance. And resistance tells life, I don't trust you. Life responds to trust, not control. When you relax your grip, things begin to flow. When you release urgency, timing aligns. When you stop insisting, opportunities appear effortlessly. Allowing begins with surrender. Surrender is often misunderstood as weakness or giving up. In truth, surrender is alignment. It is the moment you stop fighting the present and stop arguing with the process. Surrender says, I no longer need to struggle to prove my worth or secure my future. That decision frees energy, and freed energy moves quickly. When you allow, you stop defining success by speed. You stop asking, why hasn't it happened yet? And start living as if it already has. This inner shift changes your posture toward life. You become less reactive, less anxious, less guarded. And that calm expectancy becomes magnetic. Many people confuse allowing with indifference. But allowing does not mean you stop caring, it means you stop clinging. There is a difference between desire and attachment. Desire is natural. Attachment is heavy. Attachment says, I need this to be okay. Allowing says, I am okay, and I welcome this. Life responds differently to these two states. Allowing requires trust in yourself. Not just trust that things will work out, but trust that you can handle whatever unfolds. When you trust yourself, you no longer fear outcomes. And when fear dissolves, openness expands. Fear closes. Trust opens. What you open to, you receive. Openness is a state of inner permission. It is the quiet acceptance that good can come easily. Many people secretly believe that life must be hard, that blessings must be earned through struggle. This belief closes the door to ease. When you allow ease, you allow flow. When you allow flow, life meets you halfway and then goes further. Allowing also means letting go of the need for constant signs. When you require reassurance at every step, you signal doubt. But when you move forward calmly without needing confirmation, you demonstrate faith. That faith invites results. Life responds to those who act from quiet confidence, not frantic hope. When you stop chasing, something surprising happens, clarity increases. You make better decisions. You recognize aligned opportunities. You say no without guilt. You say yes without fear. Chasing clouds perception. Allowing sharpens it. The calmer you are, the more accurately you perceive. Allowing creates space. And space is essential for manifestation. If your mind is crowded with worry, planning, and anticipation, there is no room for inspiration. When you allow, ideas arise naturally. Connections appear unexpectedly. Solutions show up without effort. Space invites intelligence. Many people resist allowing because they equate control with safety. They believe that if they stop managing everything, things will fall apart. But control is an illusion. True safety comes from alignment. When you are aligned, you do not need to control outcomes because you trust the process that brings them. Allowing also means releasing emotional deadlines. When you say, it must happen by this time, you create pressure. Pressure constricts flow. Life does not respond well to ultimatums. It responds to cooperation. When you cooperate with timing instead of demanding it, things unfold smoothly. Openness shows in how you live day to day. Are you present or are you mentally somewhere else? Are you enjoying now or postponing happiness until something arrives? When you enjoy now, you signal readiness. Enjoyment is not a reward for manifestation, it is a pathway to it. Allowing transforms effort into ease. You still take action, but action feels inspired rather than forced. You move because it feels right, not because you are afraid of missing out. Inspired action carries power. Forced action carries exhaustion. Life amplifies what feels aligned. When you truly allow, you stop telling life how it should arrive. You stop narrowing possibilities. You stop assuming limitations. You leave room for surprise. And life loves to surprise those who are open. What arrives is often better, faster, and more fulfilling than what you try to plan. The moment you shift from chasing to allowing, your relationship with life changes. Life stops feeling like something you must conquer and starts feeling like something that collaborates with you. This collaboration is the secret. You are not alone in creation. When you open yourself, life meets you. Allowing is a daily choice. It is the choice to soften instead of tighten, to trust instead of doubt, to receive instead of resist. Each time you choose openness, you move closer to alignment. Each time you release control, you invite flow. What you allow determines what you experience. When you allow abundance, abundance appears. When you allow love, love arrives. When you allow peace, peace settles in. Life does not withhold, it responds. And it responds most generously to those who are open enough to receive.